Hey guys, what's going on? It's Eli, back with another review video, and to close off Snow White Movie Week, we come to our last Snow White film, and yeah, being a part of Snow White Movie Week, you get the drill, yes. And yeah, as I teased in the last review video, if it was not obvious immediately, yeah, and like I also said, this does count, right? Because it is, something Snow White related, and one of these characters from Snow White, this being his own movie, and yeah. And I know I mentioned this, where this being a prequel, it technically is, but, not fully, because, the movie starts off with some prequel stuff to it, but then the rest of the movie continues on, where, it picks up 7 years after the events of Snow White and the Huntsman, and we continue where this movie started off. You get what I'm saying? And yeah, and of course, anybody who has seen this movie would also know that too, but yeah. So that's right, guys. To close off Snow White Movie Week, I'm reviewing from 2016 the prequel, but it's more than just a prequel, to Snow White and the Huntsman. The Huntsman, Winter's War. Yes, The Huntsman, Winter's War. Yeah, I gotta be completely honest. I actually liked, The Huntsman, Winter's War, and good God, because a 20% on Rotten Tomatoes, is this seriously that bad? I didn't think it was that bad, and like how I said about, the last two Snow White films that I reviewed, I didn't think they were bad at all. I gave them a lot of positive things, and you're gonna see me say a lot of positive things for this one, yeah. I thought that what The Huntsman Winter's War had to offer, and I kind of wasn't expecting, first off, let me start with this. I knew and I read that, that this being a prequel to Snow White and the Huntsman, but when I watched this, yeah, because this is more than just a prequel. Almost the entirety of this movie is more of a sequel. I mean, wouldn't this film be like both a prequel / a sequel, because it starts off with a prequel, and then the rest of the movie continues on 7 years later after, but as I explained at the start, the movie starts off with a background and such to the Huntsman, his character, and then 7 years later, we pick up where that story first started, okay? So, yeah, and this being after the events of Snow White and the Huntsman, where the story that began, it continues on, but yeah. I thought that what The Huntsman, Winter's War had to offer from beginning to end was pretty good, and man, some moments that happen in The Huntsman, Winter's War, very creative, I should say. And just like in Snow White and the Huntsman, some twists and surprises here and there, and yeah, how it's done in this, oh yeah, pretty good. And until I get to them, But yeah, and it was great to see good old Chris Hemsworth once again reprising the role of the titled character, and this time we get to know the Huntsman's actual name. Yeah, but until I mention his name in just a moment, but yeah. The fact that we finally get to see the Huntsman's late wife, or so she was the late wife to the Huntsman. Because how it was established in Snow White and the Huntsman, yeah, we assumed as though, but what happens in The Huntsman Winter's War, very interesting on the direction that this movie took. Also seeing Charlize Theron once again coming back, and new faces that step in, most notably Emily Blunt. Yep, good to see her as well in this. And her playing a villain in this, although she doesn't really become a villain for the heck of it. And yeah, because as the movie proceeds and as we watch it, yeah, and how slowly but surely we learn, and when it comes to the climax, And I thought that the action and fighting sequences and the romance that's in this movie and the quest/adventure that the Huntsman and the others they get themselves into because, the magic mirror is not done for yet, because, and just like how in Snow White and the Huntsman, nothing really happened to the magic mirror until now, when it's trying to be disposed of, but it's about to be in the hands of evil, and so on. And just overall, I was quite enjoying and liking the Huntsman Winter's War as I watched it, and like I said, I think this was pretty good. It may not be the best, I understand, but come on, is it really that god-awful? At least in my opinion, I don't think so, no. And I'm sure the same goes for you guys, but overall, The Huntsman Winter's War, it is what it is, it's okay, but I'd say it's not that bad. It's a quite fun, adventurous, entertaining film, But alright, so, as always, now that we're done with, with the first things I have to say about it, now, read the description / the story. Betrayed by her evil sister, Revena, I think, if I am pronouncing that right still, because how her name is specifically said, but again, you know me sometimes. Heartbroken, Freya, I think, if I'm saying that right too, retreats to a northern kingdom to raise an army of huntsmen as her protectors, gifted with the ability to freeze her enemies in ice. Freya teaches her young soldiers to never fall in love. When Eric, that being the name of the huntsman, and fellow warrior Sarah defy this rule, the angry queen does whatever she can to stop them. As war between the siblings, again, you know me sometimes. Eric and Sarah try to end Revena's wicked region. Alright, so, with that out of the way, I apologize, but again, you know me sometimes, how I pronounce certain words, but anyways, with that out of the way, getting into the film itself, but also a little bit of background, just a little. Start with that. Best way I can put at it, because from what I read, because Universal, they were planning to do a sequel to Snow White and the Huntsman, but without Kristen Stewart involved and her not reprising the role of Snow White. It's believed that, she, because the reason being, she was not a part of the prequel/sequel to this, because apparently she had an affair with the director on the first movie, but Universal denied this claim, but, it's hard to tell, really. And they were exploring numerous ideas for how they can do, another film being canon to Snow White and the Huntsman, and thus, the movie centering, solely on the Huntsman, with the mentioning of Snow White here and there, even though we don't see her on camera, and Kristen Stewart does not come back to reprise the role of Snow White, and this being a prequel, but it's also a sequel/follow-up. I mean, how this movie's done specifically, and as I said, but, and also, one of the cast members, who plays, Sarah, well, you know what, when I say the actress's name, that's when I'll mention it, but that's the best I can do for background, but, okay, getting into the film itself, because, first off, it's really cool how, the movie opens with the Universal logo, because, it's gold and such, and, transitioning to the globe, planet Earth, to, the magic mirror, and the narrator for The Huntsman Winter's War is none other than good old Liam Neeson, yes. And did I forget to mention that in Snow White and the Huntsman, a bit of narration that was in Snow White and the Huntsman, that was Chris Hemsworth, so just forgot to mention that and just wanted to throw that out. But Liam Neeson, who is the narrator for The Huntsman Winter's War, it's Liam Neeson. He's good in anything. He's how can you not love a great voice that Neeson has? And yeah, he was pretty good at being the narrator in this movie. Not for the entirety of this movie, just, certain parts here and there, even the ending to the movie, but yeah. Well, a little recap on Snow White and the Huntsman, but before all that happened, we see and start with a bit of background and prequel stuff. And well, one of the first characters that we see is, of course, Charlize Theron herself, once again reprising the role of the evil Ravenna, and well, she's playing chess and kind of seducing a king that she's married, and that being played by Robert Portal, and ultimately, yeah. And just like how we've seen her killed Snow White's father / the king, well, yeah, her killing the king, and by using her fingers and those metal pieces on her fingers, doing that, and yeah, thus the king is dead, and a funeral that happens. And there's a moment where even Ravenna notices this, that her sister, and apparently, we never knew until now that Ravenna not only had, one sibling, which being a brother, but she had another sibling, which being a sister, and that being Freya. Yeah, Freya, I think, yeah. Again, I'm pretty sure that's how her name is pronounced. Being played by good old Emily Blunt, yeah. And hey, Emily Blunt, well, she's good in anything, right? So I don't think she was a disappointment in this movie, yeah. So again, she is the sister of Ravenna, and Ravenna can notice that her sister has her eyes on this one person who is there, and a part of the kingdom and such, and that being the Duke. And yeah, Duke of Blackwood, that being him, being played by Colin Morgan, yeah. And she's in love with him, and he's in love with her. And then later on, the sisters have a conversation and about the Duke and such. But apparently, and unbeknownst to to her sister, Ravenna points this out to her that she's carrying the Duke's child. She had no idea until now when her sister told her. Yeah, that's unbelievable. And how did she not sense and feel that she was pregnant? It's amazing. And even Ravenna telling Freya that the Duke has his heart set for someone else, and won't care about her and the child that she carries, which being hers and the Duke's child. But Freya doesn't believe her, and what happens next is, and to speed things up some, because she at one point receives a note from the Duke that they will privately / secretly marry in a garden, and they will disembark, just them and their child, and have their happily ever after. But she then notices up top one of the towers of the castle that, as of now, Ravenna has taken over, that, something's happened in the room where the child, is sleeping. Because by that point, she did give birth to the child. And when she sees that something's happened, her dashing her way up there and can see that there's a bit of smoke. And apparently, yeah, because she can even see from the tower outside that fire and such. Apparently, the Duke killed their child. And the Duke telling her that he had no choice. And then Freya, upset by what has happened, she unleashes the power of ice and freezing / murdering the Duke, because when he's frozen solid, he falls over and he breaks, and that's the end of him. And she, is knocked out by this, and what happens next is Ravenna sends her sister to the north, where she can rule a kingdom of her own. And when that happens, the north basically turns to frozen, icy snow, winter and such, and, well, because that she lost her child, and because, if she can't have a child, then, well, she's gonna take children that live in the North and making an army and such, taking the children from their parents, their moms and dads, and bringing them in as to be a part of her, to be her very own army. And just so happens that two of those children happen to be young Eric and young Sarah. Yep, and this is where we would first see, and this is the beginning of Eric / the Huntsman. And young Eric being played by young Conrad Kahn, and young Sarah being played by Niam Walter, if I'm saying the first name right. And a couple of others, like, some of the other kids, like most notably young Tall being played by Nana Agamemnon Bediako. I know I'm butchering, but again, you know me sometimes. So again, the children that live in this village and near her castle in the North, them being taken in and being forced to, be by her side and be trained as warriors. And that's what happens, because some montage that we get of them being trained as warriors, and, how slowly but surely they are starting to, worship and follow, the path of their now queen and such, and more on the North, because, the North refers to lands ruled by Queen Freya, and is the primary setting of, so there's that. There's the description of the North. And fast forward, and when the montage is done, now we see Eric / the Huntsman all grown up, and once again being played by Chris Hemsworth, and Sarah, now adult Sarah, being played by good old Jessica Chastain. Yeah, I think I'm saying her last name right. We know her and love her. She's a good actress, great person. And now that I say her name, she was the fun fact I wanted to mention, and now I say Jessica's name, she was obligated to do this movie because, well, she had previously done another movie for Universal, which being Del Toro's Crimson Peak. But, I don't know, because I'm sure, no doubt that, it was not a problem for her being obligated to do this, and no doubt that probably she had a good time doing this movie. So, and you know what? Jessica, she's really good in this movie. She's a great actress, as I said, and she does not disappoint playing Sarah, who would soon become the wife of Eric. And like I said, this is where we see Eric's wife on screen, and and from the beginning, Eric and Sarah did lay eyes on one another, and even now that they're older, because how the first few times, the interactions that they have, but slowly but surely, because when they would start to express their true feelings for one another, and, well, even when, they have a private bath with one another, and basically Sarah declares that both her and Eric are to be married, and them being married, and even Sarah, she passes on something that, she was wearing around her neck, like a necklace and such, that she passes on to Eric. It was once her mother's, and now she's giving it to him. That being, I guess, like, part of the way of them now being married, so And by the way, because by the time that they got older, because, well, more children being brought in, to be the next generation of warriors, because, always need more warriors that, from the queen. And one of them that Eric interacts with, and teaching her to have a warrior's face, that being young Pippa. I think I am saying that right. And young Pippa was played by, well, here she is. Young Pippa being played by young Amelia Crouch. I feel like I've seen Amelia Crouch. I think it's Crouch, I feel like I've seen her before in some other things. But, anyways. So again, Eric interacting with one of the children that's been brought in, and, Pippa is aware of their queen and what Eric says about the queen to Pippa, and again, teaching her to have a warrior's face, you know, and it goes pretty well. So again, like I just said, Sarah and Eric, they can't keep it to themselves, and yeah, expressing their feelings, disobeying the queen's rules, and kind of betraying her, and yeah, them being married. And little did they know, because, well, they were planning to escape and leave the next day, but just so happens that the queen found out about this, because at times we would see her have snowy, icy owls being like, you know, like her spies, and yeah, she can see this from those owls' points of view with a special, you know, frozen mask, yeah. And is it not obvious that, you know, there's some similarities between, like, you know, well, kind of, but I'm just saying, like, to put it this, Freya being, like, the Elsa wannabe, and the fact that this movie did come out a couple years after Frozen, because, you know, Freya and Elsa kind of share a lot in common, almost, you know, just, yeah, because their powers being with ice and so on, just, yeah, but, yeah, but not really. I mean, they're both different, and okay, so what? They share the same power, but you know what? They're not the only two to have those kind of powers. Look at, say, Jack Frost and Frozone from The Incredibles. Other good examples right there, but, yeah. So, by the next morning, well, Eric and Sarah, them proceeding as planned to disembark the kingdom, but because the queen found out about this, well, the other huntsmen, and that's how they're referred to, the huntsmen, they pop out, and so does the queen, and, you know, the queen confronting them for betraying her, and because, you know, they fell in love, and, she's kind of gonna let them go, but if they can fight the huntsmen and get to each other, and that's what happens, like, each of them fighting the other huntsmen, and when they manage to defeat them getting up close to one another, but it's not finished, because, well, Queen Freya, she makes an ice wall, and they're still separated, but to make things worse, Tall, he's on the side of the ice wall where Sarah is. Tall freaking kills Sarah. We now see why, you know, and how, supposedly, Eric, he lost his wife. And after that, Eric is knocked unconscious, and he's thrown into the icy water. And even a moment where I think Tall was kind of feeling guilty and such about this, kind of, because he did watch Eric's body be you know, swimming away some more, but yeah, and until he and the others, you know, they went back to the castle. And, well, after that, what would happen next to Eric 7 years later? And yep, after that, we cut to 7 years later, and after the events of the last movie, Snow White and the Huntsman. So we continue the story. So the movie continues the story where it began, and again, as I just said, after the events of the first movie. So this is not just a prequel, but this is also technically a sequel. A prequel/sequel. Is it not obvious? Just, yeah. Anyways, so, you know, 7 years later, Snow White's kingdom, as it's now referred to, well, Eric, doing okay, and even when, like, there's a moment where it seems like he's doing some deer hunting, but not really. He was stopping a couple of those in Snow White's kingdom who was hunting a fawn, and, yeah, and Snow White, yeah, no way does she want any of the woodland creatures/animals be killed and murdered for sport/hunting in her kingdom. Oh, no siree. Yeah, so there was that. Even Eric took, you know, one of their horses, just one, that being a black horse. And then at one point, he lives in a cottage and such of his very own, and he's greeted by William. We once again see William make an appearance in this, and William, once again, being played by Sam Claflin, yeah. And, yeah, and I'm pretty sure when I talked about this in my review of Snow White and the Huntsman, like, who was it? Which would it be that Snow White would end up with? And sure enough, yeah, that being William, of course, yeah. So yeah, William now being a prince, and, well, king, technically, and William has come to inform Eric about something where, well, where we do see this, that the magic mirror, we last saw it at the end of the last movie, and apparently, because it was to be disposed of, but something happened. The magic mirror, it was accidentally uncovered by a sheet that was covering it up, and apparently the magic mirror was doing something to Snow White's royal guards when they were escorting it. We don't know exactly what it was doing, but we supposedly hear the voice of the late Ravenna, and, well, yeah, William. He basically informs Eric that, yeah, something's happened with the magic mirror, and, the magic mirror being evil, of course, and, he's ordered. Eric is ordered to go and find the magic mirror, and, yeah, Snow White specifically demanded/ordered Eric to do this, yeah. And even, the mentionings of Snow White, and apparently William tells Eric that Snow White, is being haunted or something, like, hearing the voices of the magic mirror, and it's terrifying her, and how William establishes it specifically, yeah. So Eric, at one point, he doesn't want to do this, but he doesn't have any choice, and especially when, yeah, Snow White has specifically ordered Eric to do this. And when it is brought up about Ravenna's sister, Queen Freya, the Queen of the North, and maybe maybe the mirror will be in her hands. And even when at one point, Eric did spot and destroy one of those icy, snowy owls who was spying on them, and yeah. But also, accompanying Eric to go and find and fetch the magic mirror is one of the dwarves, Neon. Yeah, Neon. I think that's how his name is pronounced, Neon. Once again being played by Nick Frost. He's the only dwarf that returns in this movie. What happened to the other dwarves? I guess it wasn't necessary to bring them back or something, and just Nick Frost? Granted, we love Nick Frost, and, he was good along with the other dwarves in the first one, but I'm just saying, why just him? Why didn't we get an appearance of the other dwarves, besides the late Bob Hoskins, who, well, by that point had sadly passed away? But I'm just saying, it would have been nice. And what about Kristen Stewart? I mean, it still would have been nice for her to make an appearance, but hey, it's just how the movie turned out, and I'm not wanting to make a big deal about it, but still, it would have been nice, but I don't want to really dwell on it. But it's not just Nick Frost's dwarf character that's accompanying Eric, even though he doesn't want them to tag along with him at first, but yeah, they end up tagging along with him. The second dwarf, and this is the first time that we see him, and apparently he's Neon's brother, that being Griff, and Griff being played by Rob Brydon. Yeah, I think I'm saying that right. Rob Brydon. Yeah, and yeah, it's just the interactions that both dwarves have, and even like at times with Eric, are pretty funny. Well, again, the dwarves being the comic relief, it never fails, for the dwarves being the comic relief in anything Snow White. But anyways, so yeah, ultimately, because yeah, Eric having no choice but to go and find the magic mirror, and accompanying him are the two dwarves. And, coming back to the north and seeing Queen Freya once again. And by the way, another fun fact, it would take, while doing this movie, and when Emily Blunt would get set up and prepared for filming this movie, it would take 2 hours. It took 2 hours for her makeup to be applied. Really? I mean, the specific makeup, I presume, with how it was done, her look and appearance in this movie as her character. But I'm just saying, really, 2 hours? Oh, well. But anyways, she finds out about the magic mirror and in link with her late sister. And, well, yeah, if it's not obvious already, her planning to get the magic mirror in her possession. So, yeah. And coming back to Eric and the two dwarves, and to speed things up, because, yeah, them adventuring into the forest and what they would discover, and when they would even at one point find the location on where this happened, when supposedly the magic mirror, which it did something to Snow White's royal guards, and Eric, analyzing, even he's getting, like, visions of this happening. Apparently, the magic mirror made Snow White's royal guards turn against one another, killing each other, and their bodies being left there. There were, like, two wolves, feasting on their corpses, and just, yeah. It's gruesome to think, and just, yeah, and what the magic mirror is specifically doing. Yeah. And William was not joking, of course, and yeah, but little do we know what lies in the magic mirror. And when it comes to Queen Freya finally getting her hands on the mirror itself. Also, there was one thing that Eric discovered at that gruesome site, this, like, gold dagger and such, and at one point, and to speed things up later that evening, they come to this tavern/bar, and, yeah, barkeep, as he's credited, being played by Ralph Ineson. I know who he is, I know I've seen him before, but yeah. Eric tries to get some questions and information if the barkeep knows something and familiar with this piece, and yeah, the information that he gets. And there's even a moment where the two dwarves, and Neon, he tries to make a move on the bar wench. Yeah, and the bar wench being played by Lynn Wilmot, and doesn't go that well, because, yeah, trying to make a move on her, and what she does, and her way of saying no, pouring a drink on top of him. So, God. Should have seen that coming, but yeah. And even, like, yeah, them talking about women, and also the mentioning of dwarf women, and they're just like, yikes, the two dwarf characters. Then at one point, a couple of huntsmen show up, and, one of the huntsmen, yes, I believe that's him, yeah. Being played by Sam Hazeldine, if I'm even saying his last name right. I know I've seen him too. He was from Games of Thrones, right? Yeah, pretty sure. But more than that. He plays Lefrey, if I'm saying that right. And them interrogating, just out of nowhere, interrogating Eric and the two dwarves, and by calling them children. Yeah, and I think it's obvious that, yeah, they are familiar with whom Eric is, and doesn't take too long for there to be a fight in the bar, and that's what happens. And, even, like, the dwarves, they tried to take on them, but yeah, and they're pretty much losing to them. And even Sam's character mentioning to Eric about his late wife, and the mentioning of the queen, and so on, but then, someone steps in to save Eric and the two dwarves, using a bow and arrow, and yeah, even when they retreat, the surviving huntsman, and apparently, whom it is that saved Eric and the two dwarves' necks, surprise, surprise, it's Sarah. Yeah, Sarah is alive! And when Eric and us audiences, we thought, and how it was established in the first movie, that Eric's late wife, Sarah, which, by the way, because her name was said in the first movie, but yeah, I had forgotten, but yeah, Sarah, it's Sarah. So again, Sarah's alive, and Eric is surprised by this, and well, Sarah, she knocks out Eric consciously and such, and when he wakes up, seeing the sight of his dead wife, but no, she's not dead, and she's very upset towards Eric, because apparently Sarah, she tells Eric that he left her back at the Kingdom of the North, but he didn't, because we saw exactly what happened, but from her point of view, And when we see a flashback of this, when that happened, the Queen made an ice wall, and from the other side of the ice wall, Sarah, what she saw was seeing her husband run away cowardlessly and leaving her there. Apparently, she never got killed. She didn't get killed by Tall. Somehow, and yeah, the Queen is able to do this. Make an illusion, and by fooling each of them. Yeah, making Sarah think that Eric ran away like a coward, and making Eric think that, well, Sarah got murdered by Tall. So they were both deceived. Little did both of them know. And yeah, and even Eric tries to tell her that he would never have done that to her, and which he didn't. He thought that she got killed, and even Sarah tells Eric that not even Tall would dare kill her and such, and just, yeah, sadly, it just gets out of hand at first, and like I said, they were both deceived, and it's a shame. But because of that, they just, besides that, they still have to join forces, and, well, because them going after the magic mirror, because, yeah, Sarah being aware of this, and, yep, now Sarah's tagging along with them, and now Eric and the two dwarves, they follow her. And even when, like, say, they plan to make their way to the sanctuary, yeah, the mentioning of the sanctuary and them making their destination there, and, and the way of, like, finding the magic mirror, and how it's established in the film. Yeah. And just, yeah, once again, more funny moments between Neon and Griff. It's pretty funny. And, well, to speed things up still, because, yeah, their adventure continues now with Sarah, even, like, when they're getting close. They're getting close to the sanctuary. Not yet. Well, at one point, one location that they come to, and the two dwarves, they're familiar with this, and, they know that nearby are dwarf booby traps made by dwarves, and, one of them sets off, throws something, setting off one of the booby traps, and that worked, but there's even a bigger net that grabs all four of them. And whom is it that has captured our four main characters? Well, that being two female dwarves. Mrs. Bromwyn, being played by Sheridan Smith, if I'm saying her first name right, and Dorina, being played by Alexandra Roch. Yeah, I think I'm saying the last name right. Again, you know me sometimes. Yeah, the first interactions that the two female dwarves have with our four main characters, especially Neon and Griff, well, pretty funny, and it doesn't go that well at first. And even when they try to explain and tell the two female dwarves that they're in search for a magic mirror and so on, and yeah, and sure enough, yeah, because after a bit more talk and convincing, yeah, because they let them down, but yeah, I mean, because the two female dwarves, and most notably Miss Bromwyn, being very suspicious on the two male dwarves, and yeah, the further conversations they have, and the mentioning of the magic mirror, and the golden dagger that Eric discovered at the gruesome site, yeah. And also, the mentioning of goblins, yeah. And this is, well, the first time that in this, world of Snow White, and with the first movie, that, we are going to see these variations of goblins and so on. And, well, and to put it this, like, apparently the mirror being in the possession of goblins and so on, just, yeah. But overall, yeah, because now we have two female dwarves teaming up and joining with the rest of the group of characters. Now it's, now it's 6, so, yep. And one moment where they're out in the water, rowing boats, and even Eric at one point is trying to make Sarah jealous, because Sarah's still being betrayed and hurt by Eric, and even declaring that when the business is finished, them getting the mirror and so on, then they will disembark and no longer be married. But yeah, and Eric, he tries to make Sarah jealous, saying that, he thinks that he and Bromwyn have a lot in common and maybe they could be a match. Yeah. But also, apparently Neon is kind of making a move on Dorina. Yeah, the blonde female dwarf. And they seem to, so far, hit things pretty good and such, and yeah, because after that boat trip they have, and when they make it to shore, and the further they continue on, and still to speed things up, because yeah, and when they come across, and in goblin territory, and them trying to still search and find the magic mirror, and when they ultimately find the magic mirror, and yeah, and there's even like this goblin sanctuary or something, statues and a throne or something, because I know there's a specific word to that, but still, and yeah, when they do discover the magic mirror, and them trying to approach to it, and hopefully if there's not a goblin that pops out, yeah, but sure enough, there is, and yeah, the goblin's appearance / look in the Huntsman Winter's War is very interesting. I think for a lot of us, we've gotten used to a specific way the goblins would look, like, being short and such, like, hey, most notably, say, Harry Potter, but I can also think of, say, the Spiderwick Chronicles and a couple of others, just, yeah, and I'm sure you would feel the same way too, but yeah, these goblins, they're tall, and they almost act ape-like or something, I guess, yeah, and and a little description on the goblins, because, yeah, goblins are a race that highly covets, if I'm saying that right, covets treasure such as gold, and will fiercely defend it at all costs from intruders. Yeah, even they're wearing gold on their body and such. And more on the goblins because, more on the goblins here, because the Society of Goblins is largely unknown, although according to Bromwyn, goblins are the finest thieves in the world. Goblins are also capable of making arrows with diamonds in them. Goblins are shown to behave like apes. Hey, like I just said, ape-like. There we go. Yeah. Even when I watched a reaction to this on YouTube, even they pointed this out too. So there you go. Having an arborly lifestyle, if I might be mispronouncing that one word, if I'm butchering it. Again, you know me sometimes. And yeah, a group of goblins because they did attack the soldiers, and who were taking the magic mirror. They were taking it to the sanctuary, and took it back to their forest. However, yeah, the dark magic and the mirror, yeah, causing some of the goblins to turn on and kill each other. Apparently so, yeah. And even, like, we did see a lifeless body of a goblin, yeah. But continuing with the movie, because, yeah, one of the goblins does emerge, and so far, from Eric, Sarah, and the 4 dwarves, they're keeping it together and keeping calm and such while this one goblin is sniffing them. But when at one point, Bromwyn, she has something in her hand, and I think, yeah, it is the gold dagger, and, because, yeah, the goblins, stealing gold and stuff like that, and the goblin can sense and smell something that's golden in Bromwyn's hand, and Bromwyn like, oh, bollocks, and yeah, the goblin was about to attack her, but sure enough, Sarah and Eric take action. Of course it was bound to happen. And, yeah, the fight sequence between Sarah, Eric, and the one goblin, while the 4 dwarves, they managed to take the magic mirror, but also covering it, because apparently, yeah, you can't look at the magic mirror because, you will be seduced by it and be put under a spell. And as I've explained and what the movie explains, yeah. So by them covering it, they managed to, and successfully so far, managed to steal it and take it away. And yeah, ultimately, Sarah and Eric, they finally managed to kill and defeat the one goblin that was attacking them. Even when after that happened, Sarah discovers that all this time, Eric was still wearing that special necklace that she gave to him when they were declared married. That was, again, once her mother's, now it was his. Yeah. And it shows right there. Like, that's one of the things that kind of gets Sarah realizing that, yeah, he's been very loyal all this time. And by wearing what was once her mother's, that shows. Yeah. And right there, yeah, things start to patch up between one another, but that's interrupted when more goblins emerge and they make a run for it. Even when at one point, Sarah is caught by a vine, but Eric, of course, breaking off the vine with his axe and holding off the goblins while Sarah and the dwarves, they retrieve and even breaking off a bridge. But Sarah, she's not going to let Eric die once again. And, well, by losing him once again. That's right. Not die, but, And what Sarah does is by taking a bow and arrow, and from the deceased goblin that they saw, and even, smudging part of the bow and arrow, in the goblin's blood or something, okay, and even asking Bromwyn for some fire, lighting up some fire, and what she's going to do is by, using the bow and arrow and shooting the arrow directly at the goblins, a good shot, and basically set them all on fire, and that's what she does. All of them are set to flames, and yeah, those batch of goblins are defeated. But where's Eric? They think at first that Eric didn't survive, but he did. He did survive. Of course he did. And yeah, everything's good now. And by this point, they're only 2 hours away from the sanctuary. And now that they have the magic mirror, well, hopefully if nothing else happens, they can take it to the sanctuary. And yeah, even at one point, they rest for the evening, and the more interactions that each of them have, and yeah, once again, more interactions between Neon and the blonde female dwarf Dorina. Yeah, they still seem to hit it off pretty good. And as for Sarah and Eric, well, even though that, yeah, Sarah, she's happy to see that, yeah, he has been loyal this whole time, and maybe so, and which they have been. They've been deceived. Sarah, still feels that maybe they shouldn't still be together, and especially since she's done some things that, are unforgivable or something like that, how she puts at it. Well, even Eric assures her that he too went through the same thing as well, and maybe that's somebody else to judge on them being together and so on. And yeah, and the dialogue that Eric has and what he says to Sarah, and for them to be made for each other, just, yeah. And yeah, sure enough, they start to make out, and seems that, yeah, everything's back to normal for each of them, and they're once again in love, and yeah, it's amazing. And by the next day, well, at one point, Eric is called upon by the magic mirror. It's a bit uncovered by a sheet, and, well, thankfully, Sarah, when she woke up, she managed to, get Eric's attention, but Eric, what he learned from the magic mirror, what the magic mirror was saying to him, he starts to think that maybe Sarah set him up and such, and asking her if she had been truthful, and even by doing so, seeing if Sarah would stab him in the chest. Yeah, maybe so. Maybe Sarah might have betrayed Eric, and, well, her being ordered specifically by the Queen to follow and be with Eric, and thus being led to the magic mirror. And sure enough, what happens next is we see that the ground and the water start to freeze up. Well, That's because the queen is nearby, along with her army of her huntsmen. Yep, they show up, and it's really cool that Queen Freya's noble steed is like a polar bear-type creature. Yeah, not a white horse or anything. It's a freaking, like, polar bear-type creature. That's awesome. And, yeah, Freya meeting Eric after all these years, and 7 years, actually. And, yeah. And it's unfortunate for Eric and the four dwarves. Even when, Dorina and Neon, they tried to take action, but unfortunately they got frozen by the queen. Even when, before that, the queen, when she saw the four dwarves, she called them children. Yeah. But overall, yeah, Dorina and Neon, they both get frozen, and they're taken in by the queen and her huntsman. And as for, the other two dwarves, well, they stay behind Eric when, Freya, has Sarah execute Eric, shooting a bow and arrow right in his chest. And she does so. Yeah. But there's no way, of course. There's no way. No, that Eric is gonna die just like that. Some way or another, the arrow, hit him somewhere where it did not go through his body, literally, and right in his heart. Right? So yeah, and that's what happens. Well, yeah, after they all disembark, they take Neon, the frozen statues of Neon and Dorina with them, and Sarah, of course, going along with the queen and the other huntsmen. When they disembark, Griff and Miss Bromwyn, they think that Eric did die, but nope, he didn't. That arrow was struck right on the necklace, and Eric realizes that maybe, just maybe, and turns out to be right, where, yeah, Sarah did not betray Eric, and even when Eric points out to Griff and Miss Bromwyn that she never misses, and that being established early on in the film at times, where, yeah, she never misses when she shoots an arrow, and so on. Just, yeah, now we're talking. So, yeah, so, after that, well, back at the north, and by this point, Eric, along with Griff and Miss Bromwyn, they've made their way to the north, and Eric trying to come up with a plan. Basically, he plans to go in and take on the queen herself, while the two dwarves, Griff and Miss Bromwyn, they'll go in and try to help, well, the other two dwarves, and so on. But also, yeah, not only getting them, but also helping Sarah, and so on. And, yeah, for the queen, now that she has possession of the magic mirror, well, and when saying, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?" something starts to emerge out of the magic mirror, and we know this by now because of the whole Mirror Man. But however, it's not the Mirror Man that emerges. It's Freya's sister. She apparently survived all this time in the magic mirror. So yeah, basically, and best said by Revena. Yeah, and again, Revena once again being played by Charlize Theron. All this time she survived in the magic mirror, and after the events of Snow White and the Huntsman, basically, she explains to her sister that she left her body and made her way into the magic mirror, and all this time, she was still alive, and yeah, now she's once again planning to get revenge and take the kingdom once again, planning to dispose of Snow White, and yes, yeah, and even kind of taking over her sister's kingdom, kind of, yeah. And Sarah, kind of getting hesitant towards her sister at times, but especially when we get to the climax, yeah. Freya made it very clear to her sister that, it is her kingdom, yeah, not her sister's. But yeah, so coming back to Eric and the two dwarves, because yeah, by that point and by, the next morning, they proceed on with Eric's plan. Eric, at one point, he's hopping through the towers / the roofs, and even when he makes a really big jump, and yeah, he almost didn't make it, but thankfully he did, and he even laughed about it, and, how crazy and stupid this plan is, but yeah. And as for Griff and Miss Bromwyn, well, they sneak in at first, pretending to be one of the new children that have been brought in to be trained as, well, the future Huntsman. But it doesn't go too well at first when one of the guards spots them and how they are dressed suspiciously with cloaks. And at one point, he takes them in, but thankfully and somehow, Bromwyn and Griff, they manage to take down the one guard and knock him unconscious, and trying to hide his body in a chest. And yeah. Then at one point, Eric, he, out of nowhere, stumbles upon one huntsman, which being a female huntsman, who confronts Eric, and she asks him, "Do you remember me?" And he doesn't recognize her at first, but then when she mentions about, the whole thing of, a war face and so on, now Eric realizes that it's Pippa. Pippa, now grown up, being a huntsman, and Pippa, older Pippa, being played by Sophie Cookson. Yeah, I know Sophie Cookson, yeah. Good actress, good person, yeah. Well, surprisingly, and thankfully, Pippa lets Eric proceed on to, well, and to do with, she knows exactly what he's going to do. Yeah. And what happens next is, there's a moment where the queen has all of her huntsmen / army, and she calls them her children, making a speech that, she is the queen. And it also shows that, she does really care for her army / huntsmen, and again, calling them her children. Then at one point, well, Eric, nearby, and he's up top, in the room and such, and, well, he was about to try and execute, Revena, but that is interrupted when, yeah, she, grabs the arrow, and, even when, Sarah, she tries to take action, but, Queen Freya, she stops her, and, yeah. And thus, another battle / fight begins, and sure enough, Tull, and yeah, that also goes for the other fellow huntsmen. They do take action, and even, well, a little fight between Sarah and her sister, not Sarah, Freya. Don't want to get the names mixed up. Freya and Revena, even they get into a tussle as well. And even when the queen, Freya, she also takes action, stopping all this, and a bit of good is coming back to her. And yeah, because, confronting her sister and, well, Revena, being very evil more than Freya, basically. And, the fight that goes on, and, Eric and Sarah and the others, fighting the bad guys and such. Really good. It's really good. And, yeah, with Freya and her sister, well, man, because each of them, wounding each other, and Freya, trying to stop, Revena with her powers, her icy powers, and we find out, and most notably Freya, that, Revena, being responsible and, giving her power and stuff like that, and, with Freya getting her own kingdom and such, but, Freya, she, finds out more information and, wants to know something, from her sister, and, by touching Revena and, saying, "Mirror, mirror on the wall," and, apparently, we see that, when Freya gave birth to her daughter, and what really happened, with the death of her baby child. Basically, Revena, I think that, again, that's how her name is specifically pronounced. Revena turned to the Mirror Man, and the Mirror Man in this, being voiced by a really good voice actor, Fred Tatasciore. And, he was pretty good filling in and, now voicing Mirror Man in this. Ravina asking Mirror Man whom is the fairest of them all, and the Mirror Man telling her that she is the fairest of them all, but at a certain point, she won't be, because her sister's now-born child, and, that being her, little nephew and such, her little nephew will take her place. She'll grow into beauty and so on. So basically, Ravina was responsible for the death of her sister's baby child, and even seducing and putting the Duke under spell, making him kill the child. Yeah, so now we know, and now Freya knows, and how hurt she feels by this. Like, she not only loved her child, but she did love her sister, but yeah. And the more fights that they have with each other, and even when, because yeah, the more wounded that most notably Freya gets, and even when, they're holding one another, and Ravina, she impales Freya through the chest, and yeah, and her slowly dying, but sure enough, when Eric takes action trying to take down Ravina once and for all, and even with the last bit of help from Freya, the last bit of strength she has, and with her powers, able to freeze up the magic mirror some, and Eric finishing it off by throwing his weapon, his axe, and destroying the magic mirror once and for all. And with that, so goes Ravina. Yeah, Ravina finally being defeated once and for all. Her turning into gold, and part of her body, her entire body, besides her head, shattering into pieces. What a way to go out. And yeah, that's hopefully the last of Ravina, her being defeated once and for all. And unfortunately, Freya, well, she did make a sacrifice technically, but also she was redeemed at the very last moment. Yeah. Her being blinded all this time with evil and with what her sister, made her become, just, yeah. And, yep, after Freya dies, and now she's happy to see that Eric and Sarah are together once and for all. And, yeah, after she dies, well, peace is restored in the north, and everybody is now at ease and, being happy and so on, no longer being under the command of their late queen, and yeah. And also, Neon and Dorina, by that point, and after Freya died, they were unfrozen, and yeah, they're okay. And, seeing Tall, Pepe and the others, they're okay, of course, and the last bit of narration we get from Liam Neeson, and yeah, once again, Sarah and Eric being reunited once and for all, being happily married and happily in love, and even the dwarves, most notably Neon and Dorina, they're now a couple. Even Griff, I think, yeah, it was noticeable at times where he was kind of trying to make a move on Bronwyn. It seemed likely, and yeah, sure enough, he tries to, but Bronwyn, not on your life, but, you're gonna have to try better than that. Yeah, she was kind of letting him do so, and yeah, she takes it upon herself grabbing him and, yeah, kissing him, so now they become a thing too. And yeah, a great ending for our cast of characters, and the last bit of narration we get from Liam Neeson, that, what he says, fairy tales, can come true and such in life, but, not all of them, end and such, how the narrator specifically says it. And yeah, basically, and after what the narrator says, the last bit of narration, well, we see something flying in the air, and it's basically a golden, hawk, and supposedly it's Ravina. She somehow survived still? What's up with that? That wasn't enough for her being defeated when the mirror was broken and such? Apparently not. And there's even apparently an end credit scene where we do see, supposedly, Ravina as that golden hawk and such, at a window where, is it supposed to be Snow White? I guess, I don't know, I mean, we don't really know, but just, yeah. But, yeah, what an interesting way to end that off. with all of our cast of characters having a happy ending and, them being together, each of them, and, when apparently Ravina somehow still survived. Just, yeah, a very interesting ending, both happy and with a twist to it. Yeah, like it's not over, but yeah. But yeah, The Huntsman, Winter's War. Yeah, like I said, I understand. It may not be the best, but it is what it is, and I didn't think it was that bad. I quite enjoyed it, and I think, it's a very entertaining action-adventure film, straight from Snow White and the Huntsman, and, great to see that, the Huntsman himself, Eric, he gets his own story, and how it's done. We get a bit of a prequel, and the rest of it being a sequel. Again, this being a prequel/sequel. Yeah, just again, everything about this movie, from beginning to end, not that bad. From the story, the characters, some new faces that step in, and most notably, we finally get to see Eric's late wife, and the fact that she never died, yeah. The main antagonist, and of course, Ravina once again returning, but not just her. We have Queen Freya, and it's great to see that, she doesn't become evil for the heck of it, and when we see that she is redeemed at the very end, and when, she sadly died, it's a shame. The action sequences, the visuals, the effects, and the climax, the twists that happen in this movie, really good, and, with what was mentioned in Snow White and the Huntsman, and how we see it in this movie, but with some of them being twists and such, most notably the fact that the Huntsman's wife never died, it's amazing. I thought it was really well done. And it's great to see that, yeah, he did reunite with his wife who never died, and just, yeah, all through that journey, and when, yeah, they realized that they were deceived, and just, yeah, and as I explained, just really good. Yeah, and, with the great talents of, say, Chris Hemsworth, Charlize Theron, Jessica Chastain, Emily Blunt, Nick Frost, Rob Brydon, and everybody else that was a part of this, yeah, they did not disappoint. And with Cedric Nicholas Troyan, if I might be mispronouncing his last name, but yeah, the director of this movie, his direction, not bad. The music and score, some of the songs that were in this, mainly the one that plays at the start of the credits, not bad, yeah. Yeah, just everything about The Huntsman, Winter's War, it was pretty good. Also, the funny/emotional moments, really good too, yeah. Okay, and I'm giving The Huntsman, Winter's War, yeah, and because how much I've said that I liked this and enjoyed this, and, and as I said in the last two reviews on the last two live-action Snow White films, you get my point. I'm giving the Huntsman, Winter's War, 7 out of 10 stars. Yes, 7 out of 10 stars for The Huntsman, Winter's War. And what about you guys? What did you think of The Huntsman, Winter's War itself? Do you, like me, didn't think this was that bad and quite liked it and enjoyed it? What were some of your favorite moments and things that you did not see coming? And if you had seen Snow White and the Huntsman before this, how can you not? And with those that, whom was in this movie, from Chris Hemsworth, Charlize Theron, Jessica Chastain, Emily Blunt, yeah, like I said, that they were great. They were no disappointment in this, yeah. Who were some of your favorite characters and, the funny moments, the emotional moments, what you did not expect at times in this movie? Overall, what do you think of The Huntsman, Winter's War itself, and with what I've had to say, my review, and yeah, what did you think of my review? Leave comments and give this review video a like, as always. And so, with all that being said, thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed my review of The Huntsman, Winter's War. More review videos are coming your way. They're going to be awesome. Keep looking forward, and I'll see you guys in the next video / review. And with that, Snow White Movie Week has come to a close. And yeah, this was pretty fun, doing this special week of reviews, reviewing, 4 Snow White films. And yeah, I say all 4 of them, well, of course, the animated Snow White film being the best one. But yeah, the 3 live-action Snow White films, I think they're pretty good, and I'm sure that goes for some of you. Again, let me know what you thought of the 3 live-action Snow White films that I reviewed, and yeah. And yeah, I mean, of course, with the other live-action Snow White films, just, yeah, say what you will, but yeah, anyways. But yeah, overall, this was pretty fun, doing Snow White Movie Week, and I hope you've enjoyed. So, again, thank you very much for watching, take care, and peace out.